Hello, it's Alan back for more Alan's Musings. This time I'm going to talk about the federal conservative leadership race that just concluded this past weekend, which selected GTA MP Erin O'Toole as their new leader. It was three ballots, or three rounds of ballots. They do a ranked balloting system, ironically. And Mr. O'Toole won on the third ballot with 57% of the vote, but beating former minister and one of the founding fathers of the Tory party, or the modern Conservative Party, Peter MacKay. Peter MacKay was seen as a frontrunner because he, along with Stephen Harper, formed the current Conservative Party. He was the last leader of the old Progressive Conservative Party. Veteran cabinet minister, very well known in conservative circles. He ran a traditional frontrunners campaign, but unfortunately he made a couple of gaffes early on. And O'Toole was able to style himself as what he called the true blue conservative, as a sort of a knock against Peter MacKay's alleged red Toryism, which seems to it's a type of part of the Conservative Party that skews more towards the progressive side of things in terms of politics. At the end of the day, the Mr. O'Toole and Mr. MacKay, they didn't really have that many differences, to be honest. They were both former ministers in Harper's government. They both served a long time as MPs. Mr. O'Toole is the current MP from the Durham area. So, I mean, the only real game changer would have been Leslyn Lewis, who was the Toronto lawyer, happens to be a black woman with Jamaican background running for the leadership. She was a social conservative, but she didn't campaign specifically on social conservative issues, which seemed to have helped broaden her appeal. In fact, on the second ballot of the leadership results, she actually won more raw votes than Erin O'Toole and Peter MacKay. So, but the Conservatives use this very odd point system that allocates 100 points to each riding, regardless of how many members are voting in each area. So she lost out on the point system, came in third on that, and was knocked off the ballot, which is very unfortunate. Because if she had been the leader, it would have been a very stark game changer and may have, in my opinion, forced Justin Trudeau to think about an early retirement and really let Chrystia Freeland take over the party and the government currently. As for Erin O'Toole, I think he may early on suffer some of the Joe Clark issues from in 1979, sort of the Joe Who, as in Erin Who. My own mother thought Erin was a woman. She seemed extremely excited at the prospect of the Conservatives electing a woman before I told her Erin is also a man's name. And when I showed her a picture of Mr. O'Toole, she was obviously very disappointed because he's just another, generic white guy. But Stephen Harper, let's remind ourselves, was a generic white guy, and he served as prime minister for almost a decade. So are people looking for more stability? As Mr. O'Toole is saying, the world needs more Canada, just less of Justin Trudeau. He has probably just a few months to convince Canadians of that, because we may be heading into a snap fall election when Parliament resumes, because the Liberals under Trudeau prorogued Parliament, and they're going to deliver a new throne speech, which is a non-confidence vote. And if the Liberals cannot get one of the parties to support their agenda, then this country is heading into another election in the middle of a pandemic. Yes, we are still in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. Let's remind ourselves. So, as for Mr. O'Toole's policies, we are going to see what exactly he stands for, because during the leadership he's had to toe a very fine line between the party's base, a lot of social conservatives, traditional conservative voters, but on the night of his acceptance, he came out with a speech that appeared to try to reach out to various parts of Canada. whether they vote for conservative or not, or whether they whatever their background, and also whether they worship religiously or not at all. So Mr. O'Toole has, I don't know if enough time right now, but I certainly hope he hopes so, to introduce himself to Canadians, or we might end up with another liberal minority or even a majority government. So I do have to say his background is much more solid than Andrew Scheer's. Mr. O'Toole was a former officer in the Air Force, so he has military training. And after he retired from the military, he got his law degree and became a corporate lawyer before entering politics. So you've got business and military background. At least he's worked in the real world in some form of other, that as opposed to Andrew Scheer, who said he was an insurance broker, but apparently wasn't. And so we are going to see, I think, a very stark contrast between sort of the profile of O'Toole as a, just a suburban middle class guy who worked for a living before entering public life, versus Justin Trudeau, who lately, with all the scandals with We and past scandals of the Aga Khan and SNC Lavalin, is looking like he's a bit out of touch, and that he doesn't really understand the concerns of middle class or regular Canadians overall. So we'll see where things go, and that's my musing for today.